All Muslims must always verify and check the reliability of the person from whom they get the religious knowledge. The second thing, for the state, for the governments, they should understand that we don't have a hierarchy system like in some faiths. So anybody could just stand up and claim to be representing the Muslim faith, while in fact they may only represent 15 or 20 people, or maybe sometimes just themselves. So how do you distinguish that? The solution to that is an umbrella organization. The solution to that is an organization which works as an umbrella organization where all the Muslim centers, Islamic centers, are a member of it. They are part of it. And this umbrella organization would then look after the affairs of the Muslims into these Islamic centers, and as well as into that country on social level, political level, and any other level which is necessary. So this is the solution to that. Is that happening? Yes. In 2006, Muslims in Ireland established, or some Imams in Ireland established such an umbrella organization, which is known as the Irish Council of Imams. The Irish Council of Imams is represented by more than 25 Islamic centers and mosques in Ireland. Also this year, another organization has been established, which is known as the UMO, Union of Muslim Organizations in Ireland. This is a very recent effort, initiative. So within the Muslim community even, or within towards the media, there is nobody would be aware of it because this is just in the beginning stages. But the Irish Council of Imams, as I have said, is there since 2006. And it is representing the Muslim community in terms of in the media, into making decisions of when Ramadan starts, for example, when Eid would take place, the Muslim festivals. Of course, there are so many more things which are important and which should be addressed by this Council of Imams. And we are hoping that it will be done in the near future. So this is the second challenge, the challenge of representation. The third challenge we are facing, Muslims in Ireland, would be the challenge of radicalization. The challenge that, as I said before, because of the problem that there is sometimes not true scholarship, authentic scholarship, traditional scholarship. And with every other religion, religious text can be interpreted according to the mind of the person. A person can be radical in his thought, extreme in his thought, and he can exploit religious text for his own ideology, to use for his own, and to justify his own ideology. And with Islam, the same thing is happening. People who claim to represent Islam, or who claim to act in the name of Islam, they are terrorizing people. Innocent people are dying, and misunderstandings and confusions are being created in the minds of those who are not Muslim, and also in the minds of those who are born as Muslims. They are young, they are vulnerable, they are youth. What is Islam really? What does Islamic teachings really tell us? So this process of radicalization is a challenge which we Muslims are facing at the moment. And I'll just bring my notes for that here. We must understand that, first of all, terrorism has no place in Islam and no place in any other religion. Terrorism has no place in Christianity, no place in Judaism. It's not the religion which teaches terrorism. All religions teach peace, teach harmony, teach unity, teach tolerance and acceptance. However, what makes people exploit religious texts is the fact that they themselves are in their thoughts radical. They are in their thoughts extreme. And this is a human attitude, this is a human psychological phenomenon. Some people just are narrow-minded. Some people have a problem with accepting other views. Some people have this issue, have this problem. And the reason why people could be radicalized is also because of certain other reasons. Terrorism, for example, it's not just because of theological exploitation or because of theological reason. In fact, terrorism could be because of any other physical or psychological reason. The person who terrorizes could be someone who has a problem, a psychological problem. There could be socio-economic reasons for a person to go to that extent that he would terrorize others. And of course there could be also criminalic tendency. Some people would have that tendency, criminalistic. And another reason would be global and international conflict. Global and international conflict can have an impression on the person. And this would also may be a reason, which of course is not justified. Could be a reason for a person to be radicalized, and then radicalism leads to terrorism. But if you want to address the issue of radicalization, we have to understand that radicalization is not something which a person in one day becomes radical. It is a process. It starts with conservatism. It starts with people being conservative in their approach to everything. Then, if that is not addressed, it leads to non-violent extremism. It is still not violent, but it is dangerous. Extremism in behavior, extremism in attitude, not accepting and always speaking against, for example. Not constructive, of course. And then this can lead to radicalism. And if that is not addressed, then this would lead to terrorism. So we as Muslims in Ireland, what challenge are we facing in regards to that? Those people who radicalize others, or those people who recruit others to make terrorists of them, they do that because, how do they do that? They do that because they exploit sentiments, emotions of others. In Ireland particularly. The reason why people would become, for example, radical in this country would not be a socio-economic issue, I would suppose, I would imagine. And I totally believe this. I don't believe that the reason would be psychological, maybe 1 or 2%. I don't believe the reason would be criminalistic tendency here. What do I believe in? I believe there could be 2 reasons. Global and international conflict being exploited, or otherwise theological reason. Verses of Quran, verses of Hadith being exploited, and they are interconnected. These 2 reasons are actually interconnected. Because what happens first, the process of radicalization by recruiting terrorists is, they tell you, look at what is happening to the Muslims in the Muslim countries. Look how they are being attacked, look how they are being bombarded, look how they are being killed. Look at the injustices towards the Muslim world by certain Western countries. And when the Muslim community is a community which is very connected with each other. If something happens in Afghanistan or in Iraq to a Muslim, and you are living in Ireland and you are a Muslim, you may not even speak Arabic, yet you would be in pain and you would really feel that. Not just as a human being, but because the Muslim community is like a family. And the Prophet Muhammad said, my community is like a body. One part, if it hurts, it affects the whole community. If only your finger is hurt and injured, just a little bit, your whole body is affected. Your attitude, your behavior, your input will be all affected because of that. So what happens is that these people who radicalize others, they would, for example, exploit, and they would say, look what is happening in Iraq, what is happening in Afghanistan, and we have to do something about it. This is, and then of course the 5th reason, theological exploitation of verses. They would present verses of the Quran, traditions of prophetic traditions in front of them, and they would manipulate these traditions, manipulate these verses of the Quran in front of these youths, in front of these youngsters they would want to radicalize. And they would then brainwash them to that extent that the youth or the youngsters, they believe that the act of terrorism is actually something which is not terrorism, it is a jihad. They would say this is jihad. Even the word jihad, and even within these people who terrorize, who recruit others, they would do that by misinforming the youth about jihad. What is jihad? They would do that by confusing them about jihad. And unfortunately, jihad is a term which is very much misunderstood in the West as well. Not only within Muslims, but also in the West. When you think of jihad, what do you think of? You think of someone shouting Allahu Akbar and ready to die, isn't it? You think of someone who is going to blow him up. But that's realistic, that's what people think. But it is an injustice towards the religion. This is injustice towards Islam. Because jihad is such a noble term in the Quran, that it is mentioned 25 times, and not a single time in the Quran the word jihad means an act of killing or an act of violence. Not a single time. In all the verses where the word jihad is mentioned, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا, for example, that those people who do jihad towards me, we will do jihad towards them. What does it mean? Jihad, those who will strive towards me. Allah says, those who will strive towards me, I will strive towards them. Those who walk towards me, my blessing, my mercy, will run towards them. Jihad is, in Islamic law, jihad, there is four different types of jihad, by the way. Jihad in itself comes from an Arabic word, jahad, which means struggle. Any noble effort, any noble struggle is jihad. There is jihad bil-ilm. Jihad bil-ilm, which is intellectual effort, which is to discuss or to write something which will benefit the society. A scientist, when he is writing a book on science, a mathematician, when he is writing a textbook, if they do that for the betterment of the society, this is also jihad. So they are all, and as a student, whether he is a student of theology, medical science, or any other science, they are all mujahid. They are all mujahid. So you didn't know this, but you are all actually mujahidun. We are all mujahidun because we strive with intellect, with academics, with education for the betterment of the society. So this is jihad bil ilm. Then there is another jihad, which is jihad bin nafs. The jihad against one's evil desires, against one's ego. This is the spiritual effort, spiritual jihad. Then there is a jihad which is jihad bil mal. The jihad which is through wealth, through your resources. To give to the poor, for example. This is jihad bil mal. To establish orphan houses would be jihad bil mal. To establish places, community centers would be, or colleges, universities would be all jihad bil mal. Then there is another jihad, which is jihad, this is the jihad, which is the jihad, the defensive war. This is, even in the Quran, this type of jihad is not referred to as jihad. But this is the type of jihad which is the fifth, and this is the smallest jihad. In terms of its importance in Islam, or in terms of its superiority, you can say, it is the jihad which is the least greatest. Because the Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once was returning with his companions from a battlefield. And when I say a battlefield, in Islam, defensive war is permissible. And this is according to the United Nations Charter of Human Rights as well. This is just war, basically, what we call in the Western countries, just war. So defensive war is permissible. So in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, when they were attacked and they were about to be assassinated, and they were fighting in the battlefield against those who were combatants, or against those who were fighting against them, when the fighting ended, the battlefield ended, the Prophet and the companions returned to the city of Medina. There the Prophet said something which is very important. He said, "Raja'na min al-jihad al-asghar ila al-jihad al-akbar." We have returned from the small jihad now to the greater jihad. And the companions questioned him, "O Prophet, when we were fighting for our lives there, we thought we are doing the greatest jihad. And you are saying we did the small jihad, minor jihad." So tell us, what is the major jihad? The Prophet said, jihad bin nafs. The jihad which is the spiritual jihad, which is constantly against your evil desires, against your ego. That is the jihad which is the greatest jihad. So even the concept of jihad is misunderstood, even within Muslims, unfortunately. Going back to what I said in the beginning, that there is an important need to have traditional scholarship. Not just someone who has read a couple of books on Islam and he starts preaching and propagating. No. We have to have people who are fully trained for that. And this is what we as people in Ireland, we are missing. On the top of our head, I can tell you we have about 4 to 5 only in the whole Ireland. Scholars which have ijazah, the license to teach, whose whatever they teach will be authentic, will be really the teachings of Islam. It may be different in terms of interpretation, but it will be still authentic. Only 5 of them approximately. And we have how many Muslims? Did somebody knows how many Muslims there are in Ireland?
50,000.
Approximately 50,000, yes. And only 5 people. And everybody, of course, they go to mosques, they go to places of worships, and imagine how many places of worship there are in Ireland. So this is the challenge we're facing. Whatever I'm telling about jihad, for example, this is something which is not echoed, this is not something which is communicated to the masses. Because who would do that? Only those who have the authentic scholarship. They would know this and they would be able to forward this to others. So this is the challenge we are facing. So what happens is, in terms of radicalization, what should we do? What is the solution to that? And also, I would like to mention this, that also at the same time, young people, youth, they're very vulnerable. People who are in the when they're studying especially, they're very vulnerable. Especially when they are living in a society like in Ireland, where they are in the minority, and they try to keep their own identity. They try to follow Islam. But unfortunately, there is nobody there who would lead them towards the real teachings of Islam. In colleges, in universities, there are various different, various colleges and universities have Muslim association forums and students of organizations. If I have done research on this, on generally in Ireland, all the students' organizations, that who are the people who speak to them? Who are they? Who speak to them on topics, important topics? Are they people who have ijazah? They have license to teach? Are they those who are connected with the chains of narrators all the way to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or not? Then I can tell you that 95% of those who speak to Muslim students, they have no license to teach. They have no ijazah whatsoever. But yet what they say has a very, very great impact on the lives of these youth. So this is also a challenge we are facing. What are we doing about it? From the Irish Council of Imams, we are trying to hold programs with the youth. We are trying to involve the youth and to ensure that they do not get radicalized. And if there is someone, any organization, or we see that there is a danger somewhere, we would highlight that from the platform of Irish Council of Imams, try to stop that process. The other thing in terms of radicalization also, and this is related to the last challenge we are facing, that is the challenge of Islamophobia. And this is also related to radicalization in one way. I just want to know how much time I have left.
It's go. However long you need, 15, 20 minutes. Or?
Okay, so the other challenge, the last challenge is Islamophobia. And this is extremely, extremely important. I've left the most important thing actually at the end. Because what is this Islamophobia? The challenge we as Muslims are facing, that unfortunately the media, not only the media, the politicians, overall there is an environment post 9/11. There is an environment where there is Islamophobia, and Islamophobia is something which does exist. It is something which is like anti-Semitism. However, anti-Semitism it is a criminal offense. It is something which is there legally, but Islamophobia is not there legally, but it does exist in the Western societies. You pick up any newspaper, and when it mentions Muslims, 99% it will mention Muslims in a very negative way. Why is that? Because 99% Muslims are radical? Terrorists? No. The terrorists and the radicals are only 2% or 3% maximum. The vast majority of the Muslims are people who believe in integration, people who believe in tolerance, people who believe in acceptance. But why are their voices not heard? Because unfortunately, it doesn't make good news for the media. And also because certain people who own the media, they have their own interests. The clash of civilizations, which comes into existence through that, it is in their own interest that such a clash of civilization happens. So, I was looking at this Islamophobia. A very recent example currently going on is the anti-Islam movie, Stand Beside. That movie, which was, of course, is horrible. As a Muslim, to even watch that, I mean, Muslims wouldn't even watch it, but I had to watch it in order to know what I'm dealing with, so I could get back to the Muslim community and tell them how to respond to this. And I can tell you that Islam is not against criticism. In fact, Quran says, every time, أَفَلَا تَتَفَكَّرُونَ, why don't you think, why don't you question, why don't you ponder? Quran wants us to question. That movie, for example, by Sam Basai, innocence of Muslims was not constructive questioning. No, it was hate speech. It was creating difficult problems within the community. It was an effort to create difficulty and terrorism in the society. It was not constructive questioning or criticism at all. So what happened is, this movie, for example, as soon as it came out, the media overall, how did it look at it? The media overall, they wrote articles and they say that we don't understand why Muslims are against freedom of speech. Why are Muslims against freedom of speech? It is a very important and one of the basic, values which the West has. And by the way, this is the same value which Islam also possesses in the Quran, in the Hadith. However, freedom of speech should be responsible. Freedom of speech should not infringe other human fundamental rights. So what happened is that the Western media overall is talking about freedom of speech. Why is that? The problem is because we Muslims have an image problem. We have a very big image problem. Anything which is associated with Muslims, anything will always be seen with that prejudice in the back of the mind. And this is exactly what has happened with the innocence of Muslims. I can guarantee you, would such a movie be made about another religion, then you would have articles which would condemn it. People who would say, oh, this is total hate speech. But because it is related to Islam and we are facing the challenge that we have a very bad image at the moment, this is why it was, it's just freedom of expression. If it is freedom of expression, I have so many examples here where we can see that the West or the media and the politicians, they have dealt with this. Their approach towards this was Islamophobic. Because the same thing, in England, for example, 2011, last year, there was an ad by a company known as Phones for You, a mobile company. The ad was that they were trying to advertise an Android device. And the ad they advertised in the newspapers had a picture of Jesus, Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, with winking his eyes. And then below that, very in big letters, capital, was written, miraculous offers. Miraculous offers. What happened is, the advertising agency, standards agency in England, received about 99 to 100 complaints. So what happened is, after a couple of days, Phones for You, they had to publish an apology. The that we offended certain people, and we accept that, so we would like to apologize for that. It was just one